Welcome back, and here's our update for the second half of the week. So first up, Jeff is putting down some epoxy on the mating surfaces there, where the flange, where the cradle for the fuselage jig is going to meet the actual frame of the jig. And you'll see in a little bit, we'll be milling those down to the exact height that we need them, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. Meanwhile, here's the fuselage plug, and that's getting sanded in preparation for pulling the mold next week. And also the guys are still working on, again, sanding off the other plugs, and this is the door frame one that got primed last week. So back to the jig. So here I'm milling off just a little bit on each of these ones to get it to the exact height that we need this. So when we put the fuselage inside the jig, it's going to be exactly at the right Z value or vertical value that we need there. So I just have to mill off a little bit, and leaving, depending on the particular one, about 1/12 of an inch, or actually less than 1/8 of an inch on there. And each one is slightly different because the steel is slightly different heights. Anyway, so that went well. And here's actually doing one of the ones in the center. So those have an angle that match, or a contour that matches the bottom of that fuselage cradle. So when it sits in there, it's supported, perfectly all on the places where it mates up to the jig. And so the next thing I did was I actually took this thing outside and sprayed it with this phosphorus coating, which prevents rust buildup on there, and actually got rid of any of the rust that was already there, because a little bit of surface rust from the steel been sitting in our shop for a while. And so that's that kind of white coloring on there. And then you can see the milled epoxy on the top there. And so we set it up on some 55-gallon drums, and here's Jeff spraying it in a nice sort of military grey color, just so it's going to protect it now, because it's going to be used. This should be used for all of the laying up the fuselages for all of the aircraft that come out the shop, at least for quite a while, including the prototype, obviously. And here you can see it's all finished. And apart from my average job at welding, it actually looks pretty good. It looks kind of professional looking, so we're happy with how that turned out. So the next job is to actually affix the cradle onto it, and then I'm going to be milling the rough edges on that cradle to sort of clean them all up, and using the machine to do that. Okay, so next up here is the fuselage mold in SolidWorks. And so ultimately what we need for this, once we've created the mold, is we need some bracing so we can turn it upside down, stand it on the floor, and work on it without it sort of tipping over. So this is kind of how I designed this bracing. This is what Jeff needs, and we'll be putting wheels in those four corners of the blocks there. And ultimately, to do this, we're ordered some 2-inch foam stock that's coming, so big flat sheets that are 4 foot by 8 foot. And so I've created those shapes here, and now I'm moving them all into a flat area here, 4 foot by 8 foot. And here you can see I'll make them all move. And so there you go. They're all laid out in a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet. And so I'll be milling those with the machine. And those are all the cross braces. So we'll just basically run the machine around there and cut those out. And so they'll be really quick to do that. And then ultimately you've got the other pieces as well. So let me hide these first 3. You can see those. And here's the other 4 pieces that make up the cross brace, and I've cut them in half. They're normally 8 foot long, but just was easier just to cut them in half to save foam, because they're not really for structural rigidity. They're just a form so we can put glass around them, fiberglass around them, to create structure. So that's that. Next up, I just received a bunch of pictures from Doug over at DBW Motorsports, who's working on the engine for us. And let me see if I can go through and explain these. So first of all, here's the engine. He's taken off the intake, and in the middle there you can see the exhaust gas return, and he's actually removing that because we don't need that. And so next you'll see this is with it removed and the intake back on. And so that's actually a good thing for us, because it just robs power from the engine, and it also adds weight, and it's not required for what we're doing in the aircraft. So here you can see Doug weighed it up and took 20 pounds off the engine, which is a good bonus for us. And I believe there was a couple of other little bits associated with it, but the total was 20 pounds. So here's a few more pictures here. So you can see he's actually spun the turbo around 180 degrees from when we last were looking at it, and it just works out better. So that big hole that you're looking at there, that's the intake for the air, and then the smaller one is where the air goes back into the engine after it goes through the turbo. And on this side now, you're looking at the outlet for the exhaust, that big pipe, and that will just be going out the side of the aircraft, and in this case will be going out the left side of the aircraft. And there's just a couple more pictures here where you can see his progress on that. So that's kind of nice that it's sort of moving along. It's actually starting to look like an engine without all the junk and stuff on it. Now, we're in the process of getting the ECU for this. The wiring harness is had quite a bit of progress. I don't have any pictures on that yet, but hopefully next time I'll have something on that. And lastly, while you look at these last couple of engine pics, let me give you an update on what's happening with the model. So given that the weather hasn't been that great, it's been either cold, windy, or snowing, we had a little bit more time to think about how we could improve the slow-speed handling. So we decided to include or add these small fences that are going to be on the outboard lower side of the wings, and they're just going to be a thin piece of carbon fiber, sort of aligned longitudinally, and hang down about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, and they should stop any sort of span-wise flow underneath the wings, and prevent any possible Dutch roll of what we were seeing when we last flew the model. If they work out, we'll include them on the prototype, or we may actually modify the wing so it sort of looks like the new 737s with a split scimitar wing. Anyway, we'll have pictures of that for the next update, and then hopefully soon a flight. Thanks for watching.